Start small is probably what you've heard everyone say, but what if you don't have to? I'm AJ and I'm solo developing this roguelike. In this video, we'll discuss 3 points on how not to compromise on your dreams while actually finishing your game. Let's start off with a story about John. John started his journey by making a single-player story-driven RTS game. The game had 15 units and 10 different enemies with pathfinding and quests and resources and base building, and it was very impressive and the mechanics were great, just for one issue. After 7 months of development, he realized that the game was not actually fun and it would take way too long to complete it, so he ended up abandoning that game. After that, he learned that he should make the game more fun, so he made this spaceship asteroid mining RPG game. Now that was a lot more fun. It had mining and fun enemies and engaging combat. He could customize the weapons and the spaceships to his heart's content, but the only issue was that after a whole year of development, he did not know how the player would complete and exit the levels in his game. Basically, he had all these systems and mechanics in his game, but he had no game. He didn't know what the format of the game was gonna be. Was it gonna be a sandbox or a roguelike or a... like what? Is it level based or open world? He had no idea. So this meant that his game had no direction where to go, and he was lost, so he ended up abandoning that project as well. John realized that he needs to validate his ideas fast. He cannot waste another year making a game and then after the year realize that there is a massive design issue with the game. He needs to quickly see where the fun is and how the game is going to be structured gameplay-wise. The best way to do this is to make a tiny prototype. Just enough of a game where you can see that the basic interactions are fun, and you can see that the more macro-scale structure of the game is working. If it's an open world game, you can see that traveling between the areas is engaging and makes sense and works. And if it's a roguelike with rooms, you can see that the progression between the rooms throughout a level and between the levels makes sense and works for the style of game that you are making. Now, John is me, and this is actually the games and the failures I had before. And so this is kind of a personal story of failures and mistakes that I've personally made, and from which I've learned and from which I've become a better developer from. Now you might be asking, didn't I say that we are gonna talk about making big games, so why am I bringing up a tiny prototype? Well, it's because making a tiny prototype does not mean making a tiny game. The idea here is that you kind of want to drill down deep as you can go before making it wide. This way, your game will be big, but it will also be fun. You just start off with a tiny prototype, and then you expand it into a playable fun game, and then you expand that into the large game of your dreams. Now that you have your tiny prototype and you have validated that the idea for your game is actually fun, and you have really dialed in the main mechanics of the game and made sure that those are as good as they possibly can be, it's time to add more features like quests, leveling, progression systems, roguelike elements like permadeath and open world and procedural generation. And now your game is starting to have a lot more features. That's great, isn't it? Or is it? Well, here we want to be kind of careful with this concept of negative feedback loops of game design. So imagine you have quest, leveling and story, in your game. These are all components that create investment in the player. But then you add permadeath for your roguelike elements, and now the player can't get invested because they lose progress when they die and they have to start over with the story and the leveling and the quests. And now these are like directly in conflict, these mechanics. But of course then another example would be a fast-paced action game, and now you add inventory management and suddenly the pacing of the game slows down and it's no longer a fast-paced action game. Or maybe the player is super interested in the game world and the game is about exploration, and then your procedural generation makes everything feel the same. Now, of course, all of these examples are things that you can design around, but you still want to make sure that you actually think about it. And more concretely, let's think about this procedural generation problem. Like, No Man's Sky has 18 quintillion planets. And you know that's a lot of planets, but my bowl of oatmeal has 20,000 oats, and you know, I don't care for any of them. And the problem is that the number of variants doesn't actually matter if the variants themselves have nothing meaningful within them. And this is a concept we could dive much further into in another video, but basically the player cares about the experience of the game. He doesn't care about the number of possibilities, he cares about what he's actually experiencing moment to moment. And if your game is handcrafted, then each of the experiences feels meaningful. And if it's completely random, then they are no longer interesting experiences, they are just like the oats in the bowl of an oatmeal. They are unique if you look close enough, but you don't care, they are all the same to you. So you want to design with purpose. If a feature you're adding doesn't make the game better, then you don't want to add it. If it's not clear how exactly it will make the game better, then you also don't want to add it, because it's just extra development time, and it might accidentally make the game worse if you're not sure why you should be adding it in the first place. So yeah, if it's not clear, don't add it, and you can always patch it in later. You don't have to have all of the features ready immediately. You can add features later in patches or after playtesting. So let's talk about Hades, because Hades makes story elements work really well in a roguelike. And I kind of wanted to take this example because it's a kind of, once you are familiar with the rules, so to speak, then you can like know how to break them. So the story elements in Hades are designed at the core level of the game. Hades by design is a story-driven roguelike. Story is the progression in Hades. It doesn't slow down the fast-paced combat because the story is continued only when you're, after clearing level, receiving upgrades, and at the end of each run. But while you're in combat, the story doesn't progress at all. So there's really nice pacing where the story is inserted in natural kind of pauses of the combat. And whenever you die, the story like naturally continues. It's part of the story progress when you die in Hades. So the lesson we can learn here is that the systems should orbit around the same sun. When you're designing systems for your game, they should all complement each other. It's okay to have upgrades and quests and story elements and what features you can imagine, but they should complement the bigger picture of the game. Now let's think about kind of quick maths of developing actually the features and the content for your game. So let's say a unit of content takes 30 minutes to add, So adding 20 units of content should take you 10 hours, which is, well, it's just wrong. And if your game is improperly designed, it can take exponentially longer to add each unit of content. If, for example, new features break old ones, or if you have to interact with more and more systems every time you're adding new features. So your code base ends up looking like a big bowl of spaghetti, and not even a neat bowl of spaghetti like this, but a messy one like this. So basically, you want to use modular design if you want to make big games. The problem here is that if it's your first time making a game and maybe you don't have a programming background, then you really kind of need to figure out this modular design thing before you start making your big game. You have to make sure that the workload of your game grows linearly, not exponentially. Because exponential growth means that no matter how big of a game you're making, you will not be able to finish it if your dream is big enough. So yeah, if you want to learn more about modular game design, I'll make more videos on that topic, so you should subscribe to see them. So should you start with a small game, and why would that be good advice? Well, there's this story of a pottery class where one group of people, students, had to make one perfect pot, and another group had to make 100 pots of any quality. And the first group would be graded on the quality of that one pot, and the second would be graded on the number of pots they make. And in the end, the group that made the 100 pots ended up making better pots overall than the group that had to make just one. And this applies to games as well. If you make 20 games, just any games, don't need to think about the quality that much, just make them, you will make a better game than if you would make just one great game. Like if you just do the volume instead of trying to make something perfect, you will end up making better games. So basically you will improve faster, and your grand vision may require learning to make, for example, modular design. It may require many new skills you don't have yet. So you might want to just work on developing those skills first before you start making the perfect game. Your perfect game will be better if you first learn the skills and improve the overall skill of game development. And lastly, if you're gonna be here for 10 years making games, like why not spend 2 of them to just learn as much as possible? If you're actually serious about making games long term, if you first spend 2 years making 100 games or 25 or 50 games, just small games with, like, you don't have to worry about making the menus and settings, you can just make project, you can just press start and try it out on itch.io or something. You know, simple single level games. You would be so good at making games at that point, and then you have still a lot of time to actually make those good games. But this of course requires a special character from you. You have to be invested into this. You have to know that you're gonna stick with it in the long run. If you think you're gonna quit after 1 year or make your one game and then you're set for life, then this might not be the route for you. If you want to learn the details of how to make games, check out my other videos right here and subscribe to the channel.